Yep.
This is a story about what happens on a motorcycle adventure when you leave your motorcycle at home. Morocco can be found on the northwest coast of Africa. It's separated from Europe by just 9 miles of ocean. It's a popular tourist destination for Europeans who are looking for an adventure. The Trans Morocco Trail is an off-road GPX route that takes you from Cap Nador in the north to Cap Drar on the southwest coast. It's designed for adventure bikes, 4x4s, and even hardy cyclists. On a motorcycle, it would take several weeks to ride the full length of the Trans Morocco Trail. For our adventure, we had less than a week. It would have taken about 4 days of non-stop travel to get ourselves and bikes to Morocco if we'd gone overland, which, as you can imagine, would have killed our 1-week trip. Instead, we flew in from London and hired bikes from Wilderness Wheels in Ouarzazate. I should really learn how to say that. Ouarzazate. It's a bit south of Marrakesh. We were supplied with a mixture of adventure and enduro bikes, each with their own personalities.
It's not about the adrenaline and sport, and it's about seeing things and going places, then this is fine, because you just do it at a slower pace if you're not as confident, and it will get through everything. Whereas actually this hasn't really sunk at all. It's just not been as fun as it would be on those. Yeah, so the nice thing with the 701 690 platform is a lot of people think it's like a halfway house between an adventure bike and an enduro bike, but I would put it definitely closer to an enduro bike than an adventure bike, which you really feel in the sand. For the last 25 years, we've been running 450s. Well, maybe not 20, actually 20 years probably, running 450s. As you guys have seen, it's the right bike for Morocco. There's a lot of fast sections. If you're on a 250, it would be the wrong bike, but they're light enough and nimble enough to, do the single track stuff, do the gnarly things.
Sam had warned us that there was a boring 3-hour road ride to get down to the desert. But it turns out Moroccan boring roads and UK boring roads are very different. Every road we took was absolutely spectacular, and having just arrived a couple of days before, every bit of landscape took our breath away.
Everything's new. I mean, I guess if you live out here, it's just a boring road. Like Sam had said, yeah, you got 3 hours of road riding to get down to the good stuff, but it was like within 5 minutes, it was like, this is the good stuff.
Yeah, so these mountains have like magnetic in the rocks down. So there is like this place. It's like a hill, but the car is going fast in the hill. But if you come back like in the reverse again, you come back down. The car is trying to stop.
I have no idea what Hitchin was saying there, but I think it's got something to do with magnetised rock.
We've just come over from Ouarzazate to Agds, which is crossing the Anti-Atlas Mountains, which is Ouarzazate in the sort of the plain between the High Atlas and the Anti-Atlas. And the Anti-Atlas is older and lower, but to an extent more scenic, I think, than the High Atlas, and not as cold, which is nice.
Someone says that to you at home, you're like, oh, yeah, boring road riding's like on the M1 on the motorway for 3 hours. This is definitely not the M1. Like me and Jim were on the intercoms and like every corner's like, "Whoa, look at that, look at that, look at that." Yeah, starting to warm up as well. Gear's coming into its own. Yeah, get all the intercoms talking to each other. We took a small, old-school Polaroid camera with us. The idea being that rather than leaving sweets or money with the kids, we'd leave memories. Most of these guys would have had access to cameras on phones, but how many of them would have had prints to hold in their hands? Especially not prints that appear like magic. Sam had warned us to turn our engines off. It's not unheard of for kids to twist the throttle and sit on the rev limiter. We hadn't planned to meet the kids. We'd actually just turned off to get some photos in the palm grove. But it was a fun, magical experience full of warmth and energy. I kind of like the idea that some of these kids are going to grow up with one of those Polaroids on their bedroom wall. We headed south out of the palm groves, to the backdrop of the low Atlas mountains and villages scattered along the road. It's like nuclear hot, isn't it? Yeah. Those things are so hot. Yeah. We had two kinds of meal on the trip. One was chips and pizza and toasted sandwiches you get anywhere in the world as a tourist. The other was Moroccan tagine. Tagine for breakfast, tagine for lunch, tagine for dinner. As hot as the sun and absolutely delicious. My favourite were the simple egg and spices that we had for breakfast. Oh, and bread, lots and lots of bread. Section S of the Trans Morocco Trail starts at Tagine. Tagine? I think that's how you say it. Tagine. And ends at Fouim Zagouid. It's a long, fast, wide, open track that takes you along sand dunes and dry riverbed. It was also Jim's first experience of ever riding in sand, which would have been okay if he wasn't on the 701 and was on one of the lighter 450s, which would have been even better if it had been daylight, which would have been even better if we hadn't been hauling ass to get to our luxury glamping tents for the night. Jim's had his first little taste of what it's like to get 701 stuck in the sand. I think we're going to have to hot step it to, we don't even know if we know where we're staying tonight, but we have made it. Now, the camera is hanging off me. With some relief, we all managed to get the bikes and car over the sand dunes and to the tents just as the sun was disappearing over the horizon. The original plan was to wild camp in the desert on the first night, but true to form, we'd spent much of the day admiring the view and messing around with cameras and taking photos and meeting kids, which meant that we were nowhere near where we wanted to be that first night. Luckily, Sam and the Wilderness Wheels gang know every inch of this desert, and we took a slight detour off the Trans Morocco Trail to one of the luxury tent hotels that are scattered throughout the desert. We realised that whilst we felt that we were in the middle of nowhere, and strictly speaking we were, many adventurous tourists head this way, and enterprising hotel owners have created Bedouin-style tents that are actually quite luxurious. Think showers and toilets and beds and proper glamping luxury. We slept well, and we certainly didn't rough it that night.
Just picking up on our way in here yesterday, and Sam on the route, it's like when you can ride anywhere, like the blue squiggly line suddenly has a different meaning.
Most of it's Jeep tracks, but then when something like a rally comes through and someone then rides off the Jeep track, that creates a new track, and then another truck might follow that, and that creates another track. So there are proper, effectively, like roads to this place, if you see what I mean,
Right.
where the Jeeps won't get stuck and it's easier driving and da-da-da.
Nothing like learning on the fly. So this is Jim's first ever go at leading. That purple line is where what the TMT is. That's where we are now. So it looks like if we pick up that track and just follow it west, we can then pick up the TMT at that point. And then we're just going to follow the TMT round down to this national park.
Back home in the UK, the only place you can ride on sand is on a beach. And even then, it's hard to find if you're not going to break the rules and annoy a ton of locals. Out here, on this section of the Trans Morocco Trail, riding sand is literally your only option. The route varied from wide dusty tracks through to small and medium-sized dunes that were loads of fun to ride up and over. I've never ridden anywhere as wide and open as this. It was a real amazing experience. One of the reasons to come to Morocco was to shoot the new Adventure Spec Linesman and Mongolia gear. They're designed for hot weather, road, trail, and of course sand. And the guys from Wilderness Wheels were more than happy to show us how it's done. Jamie carved through the sand as though he was surfing a wave on the super light KTM 450 EXC. Hitchin muscled the larger Husqvarna 701 and made it look easy. Sam drew the short straw and fired the big KTM 890 up and over the dunes. They may have fallen off once and twice, but to be fair, it's a big bike.
So we've got various people. There'll be Greg up on the dune there.
You want to have some fun on your motorbike, doing something you really can't do at home. Like, it would be madness to come this close and not have a play. So once I've finished, I'm going to have a play.
Normally, this part of the world is entirely arid and dry, just sand and dust to the horizon. But just a couple of weeks before we arrived, biblical rainstorms flooded the area, causing dry riverbeds and lakes to flood. It also encouraged the weeds and plants just under the surface to come to life, creating a sprinkling of green where we weren't expecting it. This local lady was selling fossils normally found on the seabed.
This look like a fossils. So maybe it was like a sea here before. Something about sea changed to the rocks now.
Yeah. Really know what it was.
Like wire and what?
Big worm?
We spent 50 dirhams, which is about €5, for a few fossils and some camels to take home for the kids. Of course, we paid over the odds, but it felt good to leave money in local hands. You can ride for hours and see nothing, and all of a sudden, a cafe pops up out of nowhere. We took a break from the midday sun and enjoyed this guy's Moroccan tea. Really, really sweet Moroccan tea. To follow the Trans Morocco Trail, you use a navigation device that shows the route as a little squiggly line. Unlike in Europe, where the little squiggly line helps you find legal trails, in this part of Morocco there are far less restrictions about where you can and can't ride. At times we found that you could literally ride to the horizon in any direction. And so the Trans Morocco Trail squiggly line is telling you that someone else has been this way, and they think it's worth it, and you might enjoy it too. It also helps link up resources like food and fuel and accommodation. But sometimes you've just got to make your own path. The official Trans Morocco Trail route cuts straight through the middle of Lake Iriki on its way to Fouim Zagouid. But on this particular day it looked like that route had been compiled under normal dry conditions, not after a once-in-a-decade rainfall. The lake was actually, surprisingly, a real lake, and the route went straight through the middle.
So this is the lake I told you before. So it's still a little bit of water here. Like this is his name is Lake Iriki. His name.
Sorry, we've been following the Trans Morocco Trail on the T665 and we've deviated off because the actual purple line on here, it looks like it goes through a bit of blue. It's not a mirage, there is actually water there, and riding through the middle of the lake is probably not the wisest decision in the world, so we're deviating around it a little bit, but there's plenty of tracks to kind of pick up.
Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. For a lightweight adventure motorcycle trip, taking a 4x4 is probably cheating. This was an adventure and a media trip, so having the 4x4 meant we had the freedom to shoot from the car, and meant that we could get shots that would have been really difficult if we'd all been on bikes. Shots like this one. But it did mean that we could bring a ton of firewood, which meant that Hitcham could build a superb fire pit with a Tagine seat.
So we're making the seat of Tagine.
Yeah, it's been a long day, good day. Everyone's ridden well, and yeah, it's pretty tiring, but really amazing to just be able to ride wherever you want and up and over the dunes. And me and Tom disappeared off over the dunes at one point, and then you literally just 2 dunes in, and you're in basically you lose sight of everyone, and you can't see where anyone is, and we got a little lost, and eventually managed to find our way back onto the track, and all was good.
Yesterday morning, we're at Sam's at Wilderness Wheels, leaving, and the idea was, can you have a big Trans Moroccan Trail in a really short amount of time? What do you think? Trans Morocco Trail adventure.
Well, even yesterday, Sam said, you know, you're going to be spending most of the day on the road. The road was pretty epic. It was like nothing that we'd ridden on before. Okay, if you live in Morocco and used to Casbahs and palm fields and mountains and stuff like that, then, but for us it was a great ride over 3 hours-ish. We stopped and filmed and went to cafes and stuff, and then we pulled in to the desert just at sunset, and we had an hour's riding at sunset to the camp. And then we've had an all-day ride down the Trans Moroccan Trail today. Have you got the bug to come back and do it self-supported?
I would love to come back here. When I think I'm in the north of England, and where I can ride to from my front door is great. I can go out and have multi-day trips from my front door at home. If I've got 2 weeks, I can go to Spain, but I couldn't come here in that amount of time. So you either limit yourself to where you can get to from your front door, or work with tour operators like Wilderness Wheels and all the rest of it.
Breaking bread and enjoying Hitcham's home-cooked tagine over a fire pit in the middle of the desert as the stars came up above our heads was such a magical way to end the day's riding through the sand. I wasn't brave enough to sleep out in the open, but Tom and Jim did.
It is Wednesday morning, about 7 o'clock, and the sun is just starting to peek over. You see, it's our tents, the bikes, and the sand dunes. We all camped out in the desert last night, just on our own. It was a really, really nice evening. And we're in Morocco, fly in and fly out, like with 7 days, and we'd allocated, I think, 3 days for the trip, and I'd left 1 day as a spare day. So yeah, no real rush to get back today.
Just a few days earlier, we'd been in cold, wet England. And in just a few more days, we'd be back in cold, wet England. But our time in the desert had been magical. We'd made memories that would get us through the winter and more. It felt like it had taken a short trip to get a taste for what Morocco has to offer. And now I had the experience to come back again and explore further. The Trans Morocco Trail is split into sections of the alphabet. We'd done just one. There are 25 more reasons to come back.
njikarĩire ngaigua ta ndatemwo narwe ngingĩrora na kũngĩ wendaga kũraga ndutura igĩrĩ na ihiga rĩmwe ũriganĩirwo atĩ mũcemia kũrire mũkungi itho na rĩrĩa wanyinagia ndaci kũguo hiki-inĩ nĩ burani wanjoyagĩra nĩguo woneka mweke nĩ wagethire nake wonekana kũrĩ ũndũ ingĩka tondũ nĩ warĩkĩtie kũmenya atĩ nĩ ngwendete
And this is Gladiator.
Gladiator.
And this is La Momia.
You Ramsey. Properly flat. What do you guess? 20 euros. 20 euros. Yeah, yeah. 80. That's it. Thank you.